Alrighty, this is Lori Wan with Intentional Entrepreneurs. Welcome to Module 2. This is all about uncovering your brilliant signature solution. It's all about how you're going to solve the problem. So we're going to talk about how to identify your personal system or approach that you're going to use to take your clients from where they are now to where they really want to be. Okay, so that is what we're going to talk about today. So let's get started. Last time, just to recap, you learned why getting clear on your perfect client and their pain, possibility, and transformation is critical for the success of your marketing and your program. You decided who you want to work with and created an avatar. You learned how, when, and what questions to ask in order to validate the assumptions that you have and to start gathering that client language. And you chose 3 to 4 research strategies from the 7 that were provided to implement in order to gather ultimately 20 to 4 pieces of client language. My hope is that you have at least 10 to 15 by this point, but continue to do this research because it's really important. And you can continue to incorporate it into your work as you move forward. So now, again, we're going to determine your unique system to help clients get from where they're now to where they want to be. Then we're going to decide how far you're going to take your clients in your first program and identify 5 to 7 steps that you'll teach in this first program and identify the promise of your program. So that's what we're going to work on this week. So let's start with your signature solution. So why is this so important? Well, obviously, this is what makes your program unique. And it's a combination between your purpose and your gifts, talents, and strengths, and your passion, what you absolutely love to do. So identifying your signature solution obviously is very critical in this stage of the game, and it may develop. I know you have some ideas right now. You have some things that you want to incorporate, some things you've been playing around with, and it will continue to grow. So this is all about really just kind of taking those first steps and making some decisions so that you can move forward. And then once you have your kind of signature solution identified, at least the broad brushstrokes, you can start working on your promise. And it's absolutely critical that you have a promise for your program that explains the results clients can expect to receive from participating in your program. And this work that we're doing this week also helps you decide what content you do need to teach and what content you don't need to teach. And those are equally important because this module and then the next several are really kind of about content. And remember, we don't want to overload our students, right? And also, when you're very clear on your promise, it can also help you attract your best prospects and convert them into paying clients. So it's really important that your promise be succinct and it be clear. And again, it helps if it's in your client's language. So we'll get to that in a little bit, but I just kind of want to set up, why we're taking the time to do this work today. Okay, now your keys to success in this module is really finding your focus, your one thing. Again, I know that you can do many, many things and you can serve many, many people in different walks of life. And you need to get really specific here. You've got to get very specific on this program. You can have multitude of programs, but we want to find your focus, kind of the one thing that you're going to focus on in this program. What is the thing that ties all of the other pieces together? Okay. So in order to be successful in this area, you've really got to choose who you're going to serve. Hopefully we've gotten clarity on that, what problem you're going to solve for them, and how you're going to solve it. And you're going to just replicate this for every program that you continue to develop. Okay. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what typically comes up for people in this stage of program creation. And this is huge. It's doubt, fear, and distraction, and they're super common. And this is where people start to wonder. It's like, do I really have what it takes, to do this? And if I do, are people really going to pay? Are they going to pay me money to do this? And again, this is super normal. So as those thoughts come up for you, I just encourage you to remember that that's just fear and resistance that are trying to keep you safe. I mean, that's really what fear is designed to do, is to keep us safe. And who wants to play safe, right? That's not what business is about. And I know that's not what you are all about. You have a mission, you have something to share, and you're going to have to work through this. So, what I encourage you to do is remember that your background and your experiences have prepared you for this, and you are ready. You don't have to have fancy degrees to be an expert, to have a program. You just need to be a few steps ahead of where your ideal clients are so that you can guide them farther along that path. You don't have to be perfect. Remember that, please. If you wait until you're perfect, you'll be waiting forever. So stop waiting and remember, we all have to start somewhere. And the last thing I want to add is one thing that's worked for me in this area is to really just kind of let myself feel that fear. It's about recognizing it. It's like, okay, this is back. And it always comes back in some way, shape, or form. Even when we move through, one area in our lives, it's going to come up in another. It's just a personal evolution, and it's all part of the journey. So I recognize it. I feel it. I really I really go into it, and it's like, all right, let's feel what this really feel what this really feels like. And then I just really literally thank it. It's like, thank you for trying to keep me safe. And I release you now. I don't need you anymore. So again, the first step is recognizing it, and maybe it shows up for you as a little anxiety or feeling nervous. It shows up differently for different people. You're going to have to learn to recognize how it shows up for you. And then just, again, release it, work through it, and remind yourself, you are good at this. This is what you're meant to do. Pull out your personal statement, my friend, and read it, okay? And just move through the doubts, the fears, and the distractions. So my hope for you is that you will continue to grow and not let this stop you. So let's get started on developing your signature solution. Okay, so I'm making some assumptions now that you do have an idea for your topic. You've done some research, and now we're going to start developing your program to kind of be the bridge or the solution to take people from where they are now to where they want to be. Okay, so let's dig in. First step is really considering the big picture, right? And determining what your unique system or approach is to help clients get through this process. And remembering to separate out at this point your personality, your credentials, your training. That's not what this is all about. What we're talking about in this first step is simply the process and your process, because again, you are amazing, you are unique. And this is what I want you to remember, that yes, there are other programs out there. There may be programs that are very similar to what you're doing, but they're different. And your program takes the sum of who you are right now. And you are more than the sum of your experiences and your education and your learning. You're more than that. So what is your unique solution to take your clients from point A to point Z? And maybe you can't take them to point Z, and that's okay, but you can certainly start taking them from where they are now along that journey. Maybe you're going to take them from point A to point M, and then you hand them off to somebody else, and you've done your job, you've served your purpose, and they move on. Or maybe they become lifelong clients. It really just depends. But I want you to think about your big picture. You have a client who needs you. They need what you have to offer. And what is your solution? So the first activity, and it's in your handout, and I've included more of the notes from the presentation in your handout. So if you haven't downloaded that, you may want to pause this video right now, download it and print it out, so you don't have to take, again, quite so many notes. And just let's go through the entire kind of lesson, and then you can go back and actually do the work, but I'm going to walk you through what it means. So activity 1, again, it's looking at that big picture and think about, what content do you already have that people need and maybe they already love? So you don't necessarily have to start from scratch. What are your best bits of this? So you don't have to start from scratch. What are your best bits that are already out there? Think about sometimes in talking to clients, what do you know so well you may have forgotten? It may be such second nature to you that it's like, well, doesn't everybody know this? And I'll give you a perfect example when working with my clients and they want to jump into marketing. And I'll ask them, well, so what product are you selling and who are you targeting and who is your target audience? And I find that they often don't know. And to me, it's not like it's a no-brainer. I don't mean it that way, but it's like, oh, okay, then we need to start there and get really clear on who that target audience is. And that's kind of something I've forgotten that a lot of people, they don't really know on a meaningful level. So that's just one example. So think about you. What do you know so well you may have forgotten? Um, Okay, and think about what is your current system or approach with your clients, right? Think about maybe what steps you tend to repeat over and over with every client and question what you think needs to be done one-on-one. A lot of people say, oh, I couldn't put that in a program because that's really specialized and individual. Is it really? Or is there a process that you can set for that? I do find that when we get creative, oftentimes we can be general enough that we can create a program that gets results for our clients without a tremendous amount of one-on-one work. And remember that this is just I'm assuming at this point, you know what assumptions are, but it sounds like from what we've talked about, this is definitely your entry-level program. And you can do one-on work with them and you can do group work with them. But right now we're talking about, again, your signature program that you're going to walk them through. So what is your big solution? What's your big picture solution? So that's the first activity that I want you to work on this week. And then the second step, right, is to determine your MVO. Now, MVO, minimum viable outcome, you may be familiar with that. It's really critical to establishing your limited edition version of your signature program. This is what's going to make it easy to roll it out in a matter of weeks and to get the clients that you need to get in the program, to take them through your work, to get the feedback you need, to generate the testimonials, and to start validating the process. And it's important to narrow down that big picture approach into a minimum viable outcome. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to think about how far will you take your clients in this program? So one of the biggest program pitfalls in creating programs is content overload. And I get it. I mean, we want to just teach them everything that we know, right? And give them all of the goodness that we have in our brains. And so we put all this content into our programs. And what happens is people get overwhelmed, they get frustrated, they quit, and they give up, right? And so even with my best intentions, I mean, and I know this stuff, I find myself guilty occasionally of content overload. So I really recommend, and I do practice this myself, and this is a good example because I practice this consciously, and I still find myself getting into this tricky spot occasionally. And so it's worth really considering that when you're creating your program with a minimum viable outcome, you want to make sure that you do not overload people with content. You want to cut your content in half. Think about what you want to teach in this limited edition pilot program and then cut that content in half, really. And then I'm going to ask you to cut it in half again, really, because you want to go deep. You don't just want to cover a bunch of stuff. You want people to get this. So I recommend that you cut it in half one more time. And I don't know about you, but the first time that I saw that, it kind of gave me a little pit in my stomach. At the same time, it's like, I can do that. I mean, on the one hand, I do. I want to give and give and give and give. And on the other hand, it's like, okay, let's keep it simple. Okay, so that's going to be your mission, is to keep it simple. So please stay in the process. And remember, we're still validating our assumptions with our pilot. We want to make sure that people are willing to buy what we're selling and that we can deliver on the outcomes we're promising. And so it's much simpler when you get narrow and specific and you determine what your minimum viable outcome is for your students. And think about it this way. It's the simplest version of your program that you can create in the shortest amount of time and still create a good outcome for your students. So I'll give you an example. In this program, originally, I wanted to teach people how to create and launch their own signature program. And I thought, piece of cake, we can do that in 3 months. And I recognized that I was setting not only myself up for failure, but my students too, because that was just, holy cow, when I started looking at it, it was also teaching everything what we're learning here, plus creating a signature talk, how to find speaking gigs, how to set up and craft a webinar, how to do Facebook ads, and all the tracking and the sales conversations, and all of this in a first limited edition pilot program. No. So please, I encourage you, take a page out of my book and think about it. So what I decided that my minimum viable outcome was going to be was to just create a program that would teach you how to create your own program. As simple as that. So that was my minimum viable outcome, for me to go from idea to a program that was ready to sell. And that's why I came up with the original name. But I'm still not liking that name. So don't want to beat a dead horse. But so here's what I want you to do. And this is going to take you maybe a little bit of time, but that's okay because you've committed. You've committed the time. I imagine that first activity, step 1, might take about an hour, really to kind of brainstorm all of your solutions. And you can brainstorm that, you can mind map that. This activity right here, again, really, I think you can do this in an hour or two. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just continue to move forward. Those doubts, fears, and distractions that are kind of come up to keep you safe, again, thank them for showing up in your life and let them go and just move forward. Stop, look, and choose. Decide what minimum viable outcome can you deliver in a 6 to 10 week program. That's all we're talking about here. 6 to 10 weeks. I mean, yes, you can push the envelope a little bit. You could go 3 months, but I wouldn't go any longer than that. So step 1 here is deciding, what are the outcomes or results? What can you deliver in 6 to 10 weeks? And what can the client expect to achieve? So one way to think about this is to think about, where are they when they start with your program? Where do they come in? And where are they when they finish? And a friend of mine, Danny Eny, talks about, consider a 2-hour plane ride. If you were seated next to your perfect ideal client on a plane for 2 hours, what could you teach them in that 2 hours that afterwards they would say, wow, I have learned so much. That was really cool. Thank you. So that's one way to think about coming up with your minimum viable outcome. Hope that makes sense. Okay, then I want you to identify, what are the steps? What are the 5 to 7 steps that you will take? These are the kind of the big picture, the chunks, not the individual, not the small pieces, the individual activities and outcomes, but what are the 5 to 7 steps? So in this program, for instance, we start with laying the foundation with your mission statement, your vision, and your business model. And then it's your perfect client. And then it's your signature solution. And then next we're going to create outlines. And then we're going to create the structure and delivery systems. And then we're going to create an offer. You're going to frame it up with your personal story. And then we're going to create a launch plan. So that was my fallback piece. Instead of teaching you all you need to know to do a launch, we're going to come up with a plan. So those were 7 steps. So what are the 7 big picture steps that you're going to take your clients through? Or 5 to 7. It could be 3 to 5, whatever. Depends on how long your program is. Okay? So you're going to identify your steps, and after that, you'll be able to identify your promise. What are you going to teach your students to do? What will they be able to do when they're done? For instance, in this program, my promise is that you will have a limited edition pilot program ready to sell in 60 days. And I'm testing that theory too, right? Originally it was ready to sell, and now it's, signature programs in 60 days. And that is my assumption. And I have told you that if it takes a little bit longer than 60 days, I will still be here. But if you do the work, I'm convinced. That's my assumption. And I am convinced that we can do this together in 60 days. So that's my promise. What's yours? Okay. So those are basically the 2 activities that I have for you this week. brainstorm your big picture solution. Again, ideal client, here they are, here's where they really want to be, ultimately. So with my clients, again, the big picture is that they will have all the pieces of that framework in place. We'll start with the signature program, then we can develop our premium level programs, we can develop the one-on-one programs, and then we can develop, continuity programs or do-it-yourself evergreen type programs. So we'll put that whole funnel together so that their business is working for them 24/7. Okay, that's my big picture solution. Now, the minimum viable outcome to deliver in 6 to 10 weeks was originally ready to sell. So your turn. What is your big picture solution? If someone were going to work with you for the next 2 or 3 years, what could you help them accomplish? Okay. And then activity 2, the minimum viable outcome. And what is the outcome of that program or the results? What are the steps? And then what is the promise? So that's what I'm expecting from you. And I think you can do this in a couple of hours if you don't let those doubts, fears, and distractions hang you up. And I understand that they are going to come up. So reach out if you need help. And of course, extra credit. So again, this was originally part of the assignment. And I thought, no, this is too much. Let's back it off. I'll just make it extra credit. We'll see what happens. I'd love for you to do some research and see what already exists in the market and determine how you can do it differently. How can you do it better? Okay. And then when you find a couple people who are maybe doing similar work, and it doesn't have to be the same, but enter their funnels. So opt in to whatever their digital product is, and then start what I call a swipe file. As their emails come to you, save them. Save them. You may want to print them out. You may just want to put them in a folder, but see what is their process. I even do a screenshot when I was first starting. I do a screenshot of their opt-in page. So it's like, oh, I'll check that out. Here are 10 simple steps to revolutionize my life. So I would click, and I would even take a screenshot of the ad, take a screenshot of the opt-in page where I land, and I give them my click here, and I put in my email address, and I would take a screenshot all the way down the line, and I would see what every single screen says, what they look like, and then I start collecting all of the emails that would follow. So you can get 10 points for every funnel that you enter for a maximum of 30 points. I don't want you to spend a tremendous amount of time here. I really don't, but I'd love for you to get a feel for what's out there. And again, don't get trapped in that comparison thing. We're going to talk about that more next week. But anyway, so I'll stop there. But research the market to see what already exists. Extra credit. Okay. Good. So that's that on that. We have now gone over how you need to determine that your unique system to help clients get from where they're now to where they want to be. Decide how far you'll take them in your first program. That's your MVO, the 5 to 7 steps of your first program, and the promise of your program. Okay, so that is our homework. And I want you just to remember, as you go through this, you don't have to have everything figured out right now. You don't. And you are exactly where you need to be right now. You are ready. You can do this. And I'd like to even suggest that, you have an obligation to do this. If you're feeling a calling, you need to do this. And it's not easy, but you can do it. It's one step at a time with those imperfect baby steps. So let me know where you get stuck. You have questions. I'll see you on Wednesday if I haven't already. And comments, suggestions, questions in Facebook. I'd love it if you would use Facebook. I'm totally here to support you personally in email, and I'd love for other class members to benefit from our conversations as well. So I really encourage you to go Facebook first, and then if we need to email separately, that's great. So terrific. I'll see you in a couple days.